skeptics, when they discuss the Gospels, will tend to treat differences as contradictions. In other words, the reason you get a difference between the way the same story is being told is because the second Gospel writer doesn't agree with the way the first Gospel writer said it. But that's actually not the only option. It is possible for two people to have a complementary understanding of an event in which each one is bringing a detail that attaches to the event, but perhaps from a different angle. I like to use a sports illustration to talk about how the Gospels work. And the illustration I like to use is, since I'm in Europe, I'll use soccer, or what we call soccer in America, what you all call football, probably rightly so. And that is the VAR, the video review that happens. And you're asking the question, what's a goal scored, or what's a foul committed, or whatever. And certain angles on that event actually don't answer the question that you're asking, but certain other angles will answer the question that you're asking, or at least hopefully they will, to resolve whether a goal has been scored or a foul has been committed. And so angles of the way in which events work are part of the way the Gospels themselves work. Each Gospel writer is bringing a certain angle and set of concerns to the way the events are being described. And one angle may complement what you get from another Gospel edition or another rendition of what the event is. And those two things will complement one another. They won't contradict one another, at least not necessarily. Sometimes knowing the cultural script or the cultural background to an event helps you understand why the difference exists, or sometimes understanding the concern that one Gospel writer has that the other Gospel writer doesn't have will show the same thing. So an example, when the centurion's slave is healed by Jesus, in one version, in Matthew, the centurion and Jesus have a direct conversation with one another. It seems as they're face to face. But in Luke's parallel, it's two sets of Jewish messengers representing the centurion who have the conversation with Jesus. Now, the placement of the event makes it clear this is the same event. We aren't dealing with two separate healings. So what do you do with that? Well, if you understand that in the ancient world, when someone was commissioned to speak on behalf of someone, that was like that person speaking. It's like a press secretary for a political figure speaking on behalf of, say, the prime minister or on behalf of the president. I often say in the United States, when the press secretary speaks, we don't care who the press secretary is. We care about the fact that White House is over the head of the press secretary as he or she speaks, because that represents the president. That's exactly the situation that Luke has. And because Luke was concerned with how Jews and Gentiles together could be brought together by God, and the fact that it was Jewish emissaries who were speaking on behalf of this Gentile, he was making an additional point that Matthew wasn't concerned about. And so that produces the difference, and the difference isn't a contradiction, although Luke is perhaps a little more precise in talking about the event than Matthew is. The key thing is that Jesus did the healing, that we got to see the centurion's faith about this healing, and that Jesus commended the centurion and healed the centurion's slave as a result of the exchange. That's shared by both versions, but each one is giving us a little slightly different emphasis as they tell it. In that case, difference is not contradiction.